everyone. Welcome to episode 22 of The Bottom Line. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Syed. So again, we have another very special episode for you, jam-packed with a lot of information. So as always, we're going to kick things off with our tech update from Syed, and then we're going to dive deep into what's been transpiring into crypto land, which obviously this week was very eventful, and there's a lot of pain that seems to be in Twitter land and really on all social media platforms. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I also want to address whether or not we're going to continue to see market rotation out of growth stocks and into value plays. We're also going to take a look at the earnings for the upcoming week and the upcoming economic data to be released. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the Fed that's expected to speak regarding, again, the cryptocurrency situation. And we're going to end things off with our stock picks for the upcoming trading week. So with that being said, again, the floor is yours for the tech update.
Thanks, Deepak. Hey, everyone. Hope everyone's doing great. I just wanted to highlight a few technology and security updates for you guys. So to start off, I wanted to start off by mentioning AWS. So AWS is Amazon's cloud server. Now I wanted to talk about a kind of a way that attackers are hiding their IP addresses inside AWS. And this is the article that came out and a few days ago, and I'll leave it in the description below. But what essentially is happening is that the Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, so the Amazon VPC, it's a service that lets you launch AWS resources in a logically isolated virtual network that you define, right? Now, customers have complete control of their virtual networking traffic and can select their own IP address range, create subnets, configure routes, tables, network gateways, whatever. But the problem lies here. Unfortunately, the feature that allows customers to control their IP addresses also allows attackers to control the IP addresses written to the AWS CloudTrail logs while accessing a compromised account via a newly created VPC endpoint. Now, I'm not going to get any more technical here, but what essentially attackers can do is they can obfuscate their IP addresses by making it look like an organizational IP address, an employee home external IP address, a potentially whitelisted third-party service provider public IP address, or a special private reserve testing or documentation only IPv4 subnet block. So essentially, the attackers can make their IP address look legitimate and basically use that to do phishing or any type of social engineering and stuff like that. So the article goes in depth, and I'll again leave it in the description so you can check it out and read it on your own. And I recommend you do read it if you leverage AWS in your day-to-day lives, because this is really important that you should know. Next up, I wanted to talk about the Colonial pipeline. I promised everyone that I would have an update for this coming week. So if you guys missed last week's episode and haven't heard the news yet, the Colonial pipeline was basically hacked, right? 2 weeks back now, and we talked about it in the previous episode. It's been all over the news, right? They went under a cyber attack, right? And essentially, in this update, the FBI investigated, and they came to a conclusion that a group named DarkSide was behind the recent attack, and it was a ransomware attack, as I mentioned previously last week. And this hacker group basically received a total of 90 million in Bitcoin ransom payments before shutting down last week. For this Colonial pipeline alone, they reportedly asked for a 5 million ransom, and Colonial actually paid that ransom to the group, right? More about this hacker group. Basically, they operate what's known as a ransomware as a service. In previous episodes, we talked about malware as a service, right? Again, both business models for not so good things. So for ransomware as a service, it's basically hackers develop and market ransomware tools and sell them to other criminals who then carry out attacks. And ransomware is a type of malicious software that's designed to block access to a computer system. Hackers demand a ransom payment, typically cryptocurrency, in return for restoring access. And on Friday, London-based blockchain analytics firm Elliptic said it had identified the Bitcoin wallet used by DarkSide to collect ransom payments from its victims. That same day, security researchers Intel 471 said DarkSide had closed down after losing access to its servers and as its cryptocurrency wallets were emptied. DarkSide also blamed pressure from the United States, according to a note obtained by Intel 471. And there's more in the article regarding DarkSide, but essentially I wanted to let our viewers know that DarkSide was responsible for the pipeline attack, and now they're shut down basically, as their crypto wallets are now emptied. And yeah, so again, I'll keep you guys updated on this if there's any more developing story on here. Just to add on though, another article, and this is again based on the pipeline hack. Biden administration is eyeing cybersecurity funding after the hacks, and this article just goes into how because of what happened with the pipeline, and then also other cyber events and stuff like that, they're making cybersecurity a target. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on that, but you can read the article, and it goes into detail as what Biden and his administration are trying to do to prevent cyber attacks. Next, I have a news about a new botnet that security researchers have found. It's called Simps botnet, and basically it's similar to the Mariah or Gafket botnet that I've mentioned before in previous episodes. But these botnets basically are modules for distributed denial of service functionality. The botnet might be in the early stages of development because of the presence of the infected.log file after execution, but the interesting fact I found about this is the author behind this botnet that's developing this botnet has a YouTube channel and a Discord server for the usage and demonstration of the botnet. So the YouTube channel and the historical data provided evidence that the Simp botnet is active since April 2021. So just something to keep an eye out on. And again, the article is in the description below, so you can read more on how the botnet works. Next up, New Zealand hospitals were infected by ransomware, and it resulted in some canceled surgeries. And basically, the intrusion believed to have entered through email and phishing. So won't go into too much detail there, but you can always read the article. But once again, ransomware playing a huge role, and that too in healthcare. And we've seen that before in previous weeks as well, right? Ransomware and phishing targeting the health and medical fields, and resulting them to perhaps shut down, cancel surgeries, etc. Next, I want to talk about a bug that's exposing camera private feeds to random users. So if you have a camera by Eufy, so the company spelled EUFY, if you have any of their cameras, and if you leverage them, their private feeds are being exposed to random users. And there's a bug that came out, and customers are basically panicking. They're questioning the parent company Anchor security and privacy practices after learning their home videos could be accessed and even controlled by strangers due to a server upgrade glitch, right? So wanted to let our viewers know there. If you do use this, then be sure to update your firmware if they have rolled out an update, and just be aware of this. Next up, I wanted to talk about a blind SQL injection flaw in WP statistics that impacted 600,000 sites. So basically, expert discovered a time-based blind SQL injection vulnerability in the WP statistics plugin, which is installed on over 600,000 WordPress sites. So if you use WordPress, this plugin is going to be on your WordPress site, like more than likely. So be aware of this vulnerability, and if you do use WordPress, just be aware of it, and make sure your site's secure. That's all I'm going to say for now, because I don't want to go into too much depth. But again, read the article, reach out if you have any questions. And then more on Amazon, there's fraudsters that are employing Amazon wishing. So with the V, basically phishing over the phone, over voice, and they're basically doing that in wishing attacks and fake order scams. So again, wishing is a form of phishing over voice and phone. So just something to keep an eye out on. And these campaigns are growing steadily as we speak. So not only with Amazon, but like with other stuff too. So just be careful there. Almost done here. Just a few more things to go. So Doncaster insurance firm, it got hit by a dark side ransomware gang. So again, this is a insurance firm in England, and they got hit by a ransomware. And again, I want to point out all these ransomware attacks because they've been a trend recently. And so feel free to read more on those. And then I want to talk about Air India. They had a data breach that impacted 4.5 million customers, and this was major news there because it is their flag carrier airline. So that was a developing story for Air India. And then to end off, I wanted to talk about NVIDIA. So they're announcing a 4-for-1 stock split. So basically, what's going to happen here is that the common shares are about to get a whole lot cheaper, and not because the stock is in trouble. We all know that NVIDIA has been killing it. They're great. The chip maker basically announced in a press conference released Friday that it would initiate a 4-for-1 stock split. The company's board of directors have already approved the move, and NVIDIA said it's going to make its shares more accessible to investors and employees, kind of like what was rumored that Amazon would do, right? Basically, that's what they're doing. So new investors can come in at a cheaper price. The split will come in the form of a stock dividend, distributing 3 additional shares of common stock for every share investors own as of close of business on June 21st. The new shares will be disseminated after the market close on July 19th and will begin trading on a split adjusted basis on July 20th. The move will require shareholder approval at the company meeting next month. So something to keep an eye out on.
Tech update there. So now just moving on to the next segment that we have here. Obviously, it was a very active week for those that are holding cryptocurrencies, and there's a lot of more news coming out, and I think it's going to be another eventful week ahead for cryptocurrency holders. Just briefly mentioning, there's going to be a Fed announcement coming from the Fed Governor Lael Brainard, who is set to speak about digital currencies at the virtual Consensus by CoinDesk Conference on Monday. Given volatility in the cryptocurrency market, her comments will be closely watched, obviously. And elsewhere, Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic and Kansas City Fed President Esther George both speak on Monday. Fed Vice Chairman Randall Corliss is due to testify on the Fed's supervision and regulation of the financial system before the Senate Banking Committee on Tuesday. So that's what's in store from the Fed. And then just to give another brief synopsis of what happened in the cryptocurrency land here. So obviously, Bitcoin has seen a massive whipsaw. So it's the world's largest cryptocurrency. It extended losses on Friday after China announced they'll crack down on Bitcoin mining and trading activities. Keeping in mind, China has been speculated to do this for a long time now, so this isn't exactly news. But earlier in the week, Chinese industry bodies tightened the ban on banks and payment companies providing crypto-related services. Separately, the U.S. Treasury Department on Thursday called for new rules that would require large cryptocurrency transfers to be reported to the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Federal Reserve flagged the risks cryptocurrencies pose to the financial stability. Since it hitting an all-time high, just under 65,000 in mid-April, Bitcoin obviously has fallen sharply, but it has regained some ground after plunging to almost $30,000 last Wednesday. Leveraged positions in Bitcoin and Ether futures fell sharply last week, which tracks actually retail trades, not industry or not those major funds, right? So this is just tracking retail. This indicates that some retail traders have probably folded their tents, and the crypto bubble has started to unravel, and data from different exchanges suggests that retail investors are capitulating. So capitulating means they're throwing in the towel and they're packing their bags and going home. So again, Syed, like these are the types of articles that are coming out now. I just wanted to get your thoughts. Like, where do you see the cryptocurrency market going from here?
Yeah, so you mentioned a few points that I wanted to actually bring up. So first of all, yeah, we are seeing everybody talk about cryptocurrency and how it's going down, and I feel like new investors aren't used to the volatility. But I feel that crypto, like news aside, if you're going into crypto, you should be prepared above like to face volatility, and that too higher than the stock market. Um, it's the part of the game, right? And without volatility, we won't see massive bull runs either, right? You need volatility for those 10x, 5x, 15x, even more gains, right? You need volatility for that. So this is all part of the game. But now with the news coming out, so the Chinese news, we've been hearing that since like the 2017 bull runs. Like they always do stuff with crypto. And but one thing to keep in mind, and I brought this up before, China really like what this is specifically to Bitcoin. China controls, I believe, the stat is 80% of crypto of Bitcoin mining, and the question really comes: is Bitcoin really decentralized? If one nation has the power to like stop mining Bitcoin or like to influence the mining of Bitcoin, right? So I'm not surprised with the news coming out of China, as they always have a big influence with Bitcoin, and they've always tried to like ban it or whatever the case may be, right? But then we have other nations too, right? Like India, for example, Turkey, and obviously the U.S., right? And them like they're gonna keep they're looking at decentralized cryptos as well, and looking to find a way to like deal with this, right? Perhaps making their own coin or stuff like that. We've heard rumors about that too, how the U.S. wants to make their own coin, and yeah. So basically, what I want to tell our viewers is, if you're a long-term investor into crypto and you believe in the project, and that's why we always say to do your due diligence, right? If you believe in the foundation of a project, such as Ethereum or whatever the case may be, hold strong. And when you invest into crypto, invest money that you can afford to lose. Once you follow those two factors, I feel like these dips and the news circulating around crypto and all that really shouldn't bother you. You should just sleep freely and look, and you and like as time passes, look at your holdings, and you'll see long term gains, right? Because this comes with crypto, the volatility and all that stuff. That's a part of the game here, right? So that's my 2 cents on it. And once again, like, try to buy the dip. And when I say buy the dip, maybe like don't try to find the lowest point where like you're comfortable going in, because I feel like a lot of people, like, they keep buying the dip and then they end up losing money. So again, this is really hard to do, to find the lowest point of entry, but maybe set a point of entry for yourself, right? That, for example, you want to get into Ethereum. If Ethereum gets to $1,500, then that could be your buying point, right? So stuff like that. And don't blindly follow social media and stuff like that too, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Do your own research, do your own due diligence, and just just invest smartly. That's all I can say.
And you make two great, you make a bunch of great points there. I have two main points that I wanted to bring up myself, and that one of which is that if you're sweating over these losses here, chances are you are over levered, and like you mentioned, only invest what you're comfortable losing, right? And really, when you're building out your portfolio as you get older, you want to invest in assets that generate some sort of cash flow. That's why a lot of older investors look to real estate, right? Because you think that, okay, like if I buy a real estate investment property, I can get rent out of it. So like obviously you should try to put your income towards generating passive income, right? And that's something that you should primarily focus on. And these sort of assets are speculative assets, right? And you can lose them all. And to actually allocate a significant amount of your portfolio into a cryptocurrency, that's not prudent investing, right? So and to that effect, the second point I wanted to make is I actually read a statistic online, and that showed that 1 in 3 crypto investors have no idea how it works. So
Yeah.
that goes back to the due diligence stage. Like you're investing because you see all the hype around it, to the point where you can't walk on the street without hearing someone talk about cryptocurrencies, right? I think that's where the problem stems from, because people think it becomes free money. And what happens in these speculative markets is when you think it's free money, that's when the rug pull usually comes, right? So obviously, if there's two things here. One, you have to know what you own, right? So these projects like Ethereum, Cardano, Bitcoin, whatever the case is, right? If you're convicted about them, you've done your research, you know it has long-term legs. You're not going to be fretting whether there's going to be China fears or whatever the case may be, regulation fears. That's not going to be an issue. And so that's the first part of it, being aware of like you know what you're invested in and you know it has long-term legs. That's one thing to ease the fear. The second thing is you don't want to allocate too much money into it because obviously it's very speculative in nature. And we were warning people who would ask us like whether it's a good time to invest in cryptocurrencies at the time. We even said like cryptocurrencies, especially at those levels that we were seeing them at, are very speculative bets. They've run up significantly, thousands of percent, some of them, and they were due for a correction. You never know when it's going to come, right? So that's why if you want to go into something like this, that still to me is unproven at this point, you have to know what you're buying and you have to know that the amount that you've allocated is something you're willing to lose all of, right? That ultimately, if you can take care of those two items, then you're not going to be stressed and you will be able to hold strong on these, right? So those are the main things that we have to look at. And Syed, you mentioned as well for the day traders, day trading cryptocurrencies is tough because of all of the gas fees that you have to pay. Like maybe you just look at the stock market if you just want to make a quick day trade, right? Like you got to be aware of these ancillary things that come into play here, like whether it's transaction fees, whether it's the potential of an Elon Musk Black Swan event, whether it's the regulation. Like you just have to be very aware of the space that you're invested in, and as long as you can do that, you'll be able to get through this phase. Obviously, we're in a capitulation phase now. I think if you were interested in buying into cryptocurrencies, this is the time you want to take a serious look at. Okay, maybe I am considering taking a position now because fundamentally, I don't think much has changed since 2 weeks ago, right? Exactly the same landscape. So if you are bullish on cryptocurrencies, maybe this is a good time to invest. And like you said, it's hard to time the bottom here. But you know what? That's why I mentioned phase in. Take 25% of your intended position now, keep adding to it as you go forward if it keeps on going down, right? So these are the tools that you have in place, and obviously to keep your peace of mind, again, do your research and only invest what you're willing to lose. So I know I'm stressing that quite a bit right now, but it's so important. And you can see the pain that you see on social media. It's because of people blindly putting their money, lots of it, more than they can afford to, into these sort of speculative bets. And then when they get margin calls because it's gone down 50%, they're left holding the bag. And that's something we don't ever want to see. So
Yeah,
again,
I'm
let this
glad
be
you. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, like, let this be a lesson that if you have experienced this, that you should correct your actions moving forward to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, for sure. Great points, and that reminded me. I wanted to let our viewers know about the you may or may not know because we posted on our social media, but the token called DeFi 100. Great prime example of this, right? They were a token, quote unquote, shitcoin that told everyone that, oh, we're going to take you to the moon and stuff like that, right? And the other day, yesterday, unfortunately, and it really feels bad for all the investors that put their money into it, but their website pretty much said that you got scammed and we're walking away with their money.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we say you gotta know what you're investing into, right? And education is key there, and that's why we want to use our platform here to educate you guys, right? So you know what you're investing into, how crypto works, what you're investing into, and all that stuff, because we don't want you falling into these scams, right? Like DeFi 100, Shiba Inu, and all those coins, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's where it goes back to, right? Like, why are you investing in Hoj? Why are you investing in Doge? Why are you investing in Shiba Inu, SafeMoon? Just because of the name? Like, obviously, this something like this is very likely to happen when you do things like that, right? So
Yeah.
again, let this be a lesson learned, and hopefully we those watching and have gone through this don't have to go through this again, and they've learned
Yeah,
the lesson.
and just to tell our viewers how like these coins really get like publicity, right? Like anybody can create a token. It's not hard to create a token, right? But like what these people do is they create a token on the Ethereum blockchain or any other coin's blockchain, right? And then they get influencers on social media and basically tell them to hype up their altcoin. These big influencers hype up that specific token, even though it has no foundation. And then people like you and I, Deepak, or anybody else scrolling on social media, Reddit, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, unfortunately, we put our money into it because we see the people that get in first, they make the huge gains, and then we're like, oh, we can make this gain too. And then next thing you know, scams like D500 happens, or you lose all your money, right? So again, we were reiterating it again. Do not invest into something you don't know. You don't know the foundation behind, right? And know your risk tolerance, do your due diligence, all that good stuff. So yeah, don't wanna carry this segment on too long, but this is all fundamental stuff and imperative stuff for anybody that wants to get into the crypto market.
Moving on to our next portion of this week's episode, I wanted to highlight the economic data that's expected to be released this week. So, the key data to watch in the coming week will be Friday's personal income and spending data, which includes the personal consumption expenditures (PCE) index. The core PCE, excluding food and energy, is the Fed's preferred inflation measure for its 2% flexible average target, and it was up 1.8% in the 12 months leading up to March. The data could test the Fed's resolve to keep up asset purchases at their current pace in the face of an economic inflation rebound. And data on consumer confidence, house prices, and new home sales, which is really important for those looking at the real estate sector, are out on Tuesday, while figures for durable goods orders and initial jobless claims will be released Thursday. So there's a lot of, lots of data coming out this week that the markets will be keeping a big eye on. With that being said, I wanted to also mention a little bit more about the market rotation. We've already seen a lot of rotation out of the growth stocks and into the value plays. So there's an article that really summarizes what we've seen so far and what we might be able to expect. So just briefly highlighting, again, with a few days left in the month, the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite and the S&P 500 are down month to date for May, losing 3.5% and 0.6% respectively. In contrast, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is really the benchmark for value plays here, has risen around 1% so far this month, as inflation concerns continue to loom over the high growth names that we've seen take quite a bit of a beating. So really, investors have been spooked by concerns about the future path of Fed policy in the face of rising inflationary risks. Last week's Fed minutes suggested some policymakers were ready to talk about reducing stimulus by tapering bond purchases. And analysts expect the rotation out of growth and into value to continue as economic recovery takes a greater hold. Investors have to change their mindset and understand that tech is going to be a longer trade now, and they're unlikely to see that 20% pop that we saw in Apple last year over the next couple of months, said Sylvia Jablonski, Chief Investment Officer at Defiance ETF. So obviously, a lot of big time analysts are expecting more and more rotation out of these growth stocks, which again, we've seen so many of them already get beaten down so hard over the last really 2 months now. Part of it is obviously the inflation risk, because as the interest rates continue to skyrocket, to sort of offset it, even though the Fed said they were not going to look at raising the interest rates if inflation continues to be a lot higher than we anticipate, I think the Fed will start raising those rates. And as you raise the interest rates, mathematically speaking, your discounted present value of future cash flows goes down. And if that's the measure of how you're going to price a stock, especially these high growth names, then obviously they're going to be impacted quite heavily by it. So again, there's so many factors at play here. In addition to the fact that the growth names saw a massive run up last year, which again, parabolic moves up usually lead to a correction in the near term, which we've seen in growth stocks, we've seen it in crypto now. So again, I think as we see more and more inflation, we might see a continued rotation. And again, you don't know when these growth stocks are going to bottom, but they're going to continue to flow capital out of the growth stocks into these value plays. And even as the growth stocks continue to rebound, maybe they have bottomed out. Maybe they are going to make a slow climb up. You're not going to see those massive jumps of 30, 40, 50% over a matter of months that we saw in 2020. So I think as investors, we will have to taper our expectations to recognize the fact that the stock market doesn't work like it did in 2020. You don't usually see returns quite that significant. And just channel those expectations, taper those expectations, and keep an eye on the economic data to come out over this next week, because that's going to have a significant impact on whether the overall broad indices are on a move forward. So again, keep your eyes out for the market, keep an eye out on the data, and keep listening to these analysts, because they all provide important information, and it makes you a better investor to know the macroeconomic changes that are taking place in the economy. So again, this is all part of doing your due diligence. It doesn't have to stay in particular to a certain stock, right? You want to have a general pulse on the overall market, and keeping an eye on this data helps you do that. So definitely that's something we're going to help provide updates on, but also you should be doing that on your own, just keeping an eye and keeping a pulse on the market.
Absolutely, yeah. And just at the time of this recording, speaking of doing your due diligence, I wanted to deviate back to DeFi 100, and I was just looking at their Twitter, and they actually claimed that their website was actually hacked, and they didn't make any exit. So I thought I would let our viewers know about that. Again, they still haven't paid, made any, people are still accusing them of stealing people's money. But again, that's what happens when you don't do your due diligence and invest in something that you don't know anything about, right? So yeah, you brought up due diligence, and that applies to stock market and crypto and the crypto market as well. So yeah, and once again, we'll keep you guys updated.
Looking ahead to earnings, again, earnings season is continuing to wind down now. We had a lot of big names already report over the last few weeks. So we have some major retailers that are left to report, most notably Best Buy, Costco, and Nordstrom, which obviously, as the recovery continues and in the States everything's opening up, I think Nordstrom and many retailers are going to benefit from that now as people look to get out of their homes and step outside. Costco obviously was a big beneficiary of the pandemic also. But I do suspect they'd have a great quarter and great results. And Best Buy as well. I think Best Buy should, I don't know if they'll outperform, but I think they'd probably have a solid earnings report. And other than that, I see a lot of retail names here. But Syed, is there anything from like the tech side of things that any companies that you know of that are reporting earnings?
Yeah, so I brought up NVIDIA in the tech update, and I remember I mentioned their stock split coming up, but they're also releasing their earnings this coming week, and then also Salesforce, and then Dell Technologies, and then back to retailer, as you mentioned, right? There's a bunch of retailers as well, in addition to what you said. So American Eagle, Outfitters, Autodesk, and then for those of our viewers in the States, there's Dollar General, Dollar Tree, and that's pretty much it from what I see. Also, Urban Outfitters, and a few more retails, a bunch of retails actually next week. But yeah, keep an eye out on these stocks, and we'll talk more about these next week in their earning reports.
I know you mentioned NVIDIA in the tech update. I think if NVIDIA reports great earnings as well leading into it, I think it will be a great play even if you're a short term trader as well. Obviously, like I say, you always want to look for catalysts here. I think the catalyst of the stock split is a strong one as well, as we saw with Tesla's split announcement and Apple split announcement. They saw a massive run up there leading into the split, and I think coupled with the great earnings report, I think Nvidia could do very well over the next few weeks. Definitely one to keep an eye on.
For sure, absolutely. Yep.
Just to recap the performance of our stocks from last week that we had picked for you, Brookfield Renewable Partners was my renewable energy pick from last week. Looking at the 5 days, so it opened on Monday morning at $43.63 Canadian. Yep. Basically went up steadily throughout the week, really. You saw a little bit of a dip on the 19th, but for the most part, it was almost straight up here. And really, it closed the week about 11.5% higher, ending off at $48.55 Canadian. So, yeah, again, 11.5% for a week is, I think, a pretty good swing for those who are actually holding for the short term. Obviously, I think this is a long term play here. So, if you do have Brookfield Renewable Energy, it was a nice run up this week. But again, I think there's a lot more room to go for this one. Canadian solar stocks, same sort of deal here. Opened the week $36.01. And really on May 19th, again, it got a little hammered there, dropping to about $35, but again, made a swift recovery. And really, we closed the week at $39.05 for an overall gain for the week of about 8.5%. So again, the renewable sector saw a decent return this week, 11.5% on Brookfield and 8.5% on Canadian solar. So again, no complaints for the short-term performance, but I think a long way to go.
Right, yeah. And then my pick last week was actually a crypto coin called Engine, and again, it didn't do too well because, as we mentioned, all the crypto news coming out. Usually, when you see Bitcoin going down, we see all these altcoins going down, right? And Engine is a token. But again, it's a long-term thing for me. Just wanna show our viewers though how it did last week, because as always we want to show you our picks always, even if they do bad. But um, just looking at the 7-day chart, so a week ago it was at $8.90, and now it's down to, it had a dip all the way down to around 95 cents, 96 cents. And then as you can see, the ups and downs, the volatility is really high. But right now it's sitting at around 99 cents. Once again, this is a long-term project that I see potential in. I don't expect to see like gains overnight and stuff like that. And always read their white paper, do your research, and yeah. But again, this is the 7-day chart, and expect a lot of volatility, as always in crypto, and especially with tokens like these. Now, moving on, we're going to talk about our stock picks for this week. So, Deepak, I throw it to you.
More of a controversial play here again, given the basically collapse of the crypto market here. But I think Coinbase would be a good bet, not necessarily because I think cryptos are going to rebound significantly within a week, which is possible, but we can take it with a grain of salt for now. But really, I think Coinbase is a short-term swing here, just because I feel like at some point it's going to be oversold, right? So obviously at the IPO level, it was $385 was the IPO price. Now it's all the way down to about $224. So like you're down over, I think about 40%, maybe more than that. My math might be a little off here, but again, I think given the fact that we basically saw a flush in the crypto markets, I think I think we're due for a bounce to some extent, and if that's the case, you might see a good return on Coinbase. Again, it's a riskier pick. It's definitely not something like Brookfield Renewable or Canadian Solar, but again, if you are a short-term trader, this might be a stock you look to for a bounce at least. So keep your eye on this one. Again, it's riskier, but if you have the risk tolerance for it, then take a look at it.
For sure, yes. And for my stock pick for this upcoming trading week, we talked about this one a lot. Started off the tech update by talking about this NVIDIA. Of course, we talked about their stock split coming up, and then also their earnings report coming up. And just keep an eye on it. It is a bit pricey right now. But once again, once the stock split gets finalized, it's going to be a great buying opportunity. And this is not only for this week. Keep an eye on the stock for the coming weeks ahead, especially when the stock split comes in and the price per share lowers. New investors can come into this, right? Again, this is an amazing company. They make great products, great chips, and I truly believe that the future is bright for this stock and this company overall. So not only for this week, but the weeks and months and years ahead. Keep an eye out on this. All right, so that wraps up weekly episode 22. As always, we hope that the content we provided to you guys is helpful and educational. If you enjoyed this week's episode, be sure to like this episode on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. For those of you streaming the podcast on your favorite streaming platform, be sure to follow us and keep listening to us, as our goal is to provide you with the best content possible. Be sure to follow our social medias, TikTok, Instagram, as we have a special announcement coming up for episode 25, and that's 3 episodes away, so look forward to that. And with that being said, I myself, Syed, and my co-host Deepak would like to wish you a very happy Victoria Day, and we will see you guys next week. Have a great long weekend, everyone.